The Vatican. A city within a city. A place built on centuries of faith, power, and secrecy. When people think of the Vatican, they imagine towering cathedrals, the echo of solemn prayers, and the weight of divinity pressing down on the very air. They imagine a fortress of holiness, guarded by men of God, draped in robes, their lives dedicated to righteousness. But what if I told you there's another side to the Vatican? A side that the Church doesn't want you to see? Because behind those gilded doors, behind the whispering priests and the ancient traditions, there is something else, something hidden, a world of corruption, a world of sin, a world where men who have sworn to God indulge in the very pleasures they condemn. This isn't just speculation, this isn't some wild conspiracy theory, this is real. And on one fateful night, the Vatican's deepest, darkest secrets were exposed in a way no one could ignore. A high-ranking priest, a Vatican apartment, a drug-fueled orgy, and a scandal so shocking that the Church tried to bury it before the world could take a closer look. But they failed. Because on that night, the Vatican was no longer untouchable. This is the story of Monsignor Luigi Capozzi, and the moment the Vatican's holiest walls were stained by sin. If you're hooked already, you're in the right place. This is the evil psyche, where we unravel the darkest crimes and the minds behind them. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell, because trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. To the world, Monsignor Luigi Capozzi was a man of faith. He had dedicated his life to the Church, wearing his black cassock with pride, a silver cross resting against his chest. He was soft-spoken, measured in his words, and carried himself with the air of a man who had given up worldly pleasures to serve God. To those who knew him inside the Vatican, he was not just another priest, he was connected. Capozzi served as a secretary to Cardinal Francesco Coccopalmerio, one of the Pope's top advisors. He wasn't just some low-ranking clergyman. He was deep in the inner circle of power, rubbing shoulders with the most influential figures in the Church. This kind of access gave him privileges. He lived within the Vatican itself, in an apartment reserved for those of high status. He attended elite gatherings, where whispered conversations determined the future of the Catholic Church. On the surface, he was everything a priest was supposed to be: devout, disciplined, devoted. But there was something beneath the surface. Because Capozzi wasn't just a man of God, he was a man of appetites, and within the walls of the Vatican, where power protects the powerful, he had no reason to deny himself what he truly desired. If you had followed Capozzi through the streets of Rome, you might have noticed something off. Unlike other priests who moved through the city with quiet reverence, Capozzi had a different kind of presence. He was comfortable in places that should have made a holy man uncomfortable: gay bars, nightclubs, areas known for indulgence. Of course, there was nothing illegal about a priest visiting such places. But it raised a question. Why was a man who had taken a vow of chastity slipping into the darkest corners of Rome's nightlife? The truth was simple. Capozzi was not a man of restraint. He wanted the things the Church forbade. He craved them. And inside the Vatican, behind closed doors, he found a way to satisfy those cravings. Slowly, quietly, he began hosting gatherings. At first, they were small, intimate, just a few trusted guests. But word began to spread, and soon, Capozzi's Vatican apartment became something else entirely: a playground, a place where the most forbidden desires could be indulged, where power and pleasure merged into something intoxicating. It was no longer just a secret, it was legendary. And like all legends, it couldn't stay hidden forever. At night, the Vatican is quiet, the streets are empty, the lights dimmed. It is a city designed for prayer, not for sin. But in Capozzi's apartment, something very different was happening. The music would start late, pulsing through the walls, deep and rhythmic. The door would open, and one by one, the guests would arrive. Young men, Some were well-dressed, others were more discreet, but they all had one thing in common. They knew why they were there. Inside, the air was thick with smoke, with sweat, with something darker. Drugs were passed from hand to hand. Pills, powders, substances that blurred the edges of morality. And as the night wore on, the lines between faith and indulgence vanished completely. The floor became a sea of bodies, tangled together in the kind of sin the Church had spent centuries condemning. It was reckless, it was unstoppable, and it was only a matter of time before someone took notice. The complaints started slowly. Residents of the Vatican-owned building whispered about the strange noises, the late-night visitors, the overwhelming smell of something wrong. At first, no one wanted to believe it. A priest? A man of God? Impossible. But then, on one fateful night, someone picked up the phone and made a call. And when the Swiss guard arrived, they stepped into something they never expected to see. The door wasn't locked. And inside, it was chaos. Naked bodies, scattered drugs, the remnants of a night spent drowning in sin. And at the center of it all, Monsignor Luigi Capozzi, a priest, a trusted aide to one of the Pope's top advisors, caught in the act. And in that moment, the Vatican's secrets were no longer secrets. They were exposed. The Vatican has survived scandals before, but this was different. A high-ranking priest, a drug-fueled orgy inside the Vatican. It wasn't something that could be swept under the rug. But the Church had a plan. Capozzi was not excommunicated. He was not thrown in prison. Instead, he was quietly sent away, relocated to a convent outside of Rome, where he was told to repent for his sins. No trial, no formal punishment, because the Vatican had one goal: to make the world forget. But here's the real question. Was this an isolated incident? Or was it just one crack in a much larger foundation? Because this wasn't the first time the Vatican had been caught hiding something, and it won't be the last. The Catholic Church has spent centuries guarding its secrets. But how many more are still waiting to be uncovered? How deep does the corruption go? And if a priest could host orgies inside the Vatican, what else are they hiding? If this story shocked you, just wait. There are so many more Vatican secrets buried in the shadows. So if you haven't already, subscribe, hit that like button. Because trust me, this is just the beginning.